mentioned, we do have a team of mentors that will be with you throughout the process within the next 24 hours. Some of us will be there like all the coming in and out and being able to help you with varying depths of knowledge, breadths and depths of knowledge. So again, we want to thank our mentors for being here and for those that will be helping us throughout the process. We talked about the judging. So we do have a panel of 7 judges that will be coming in and looking at your work. We've talked about the rules around the judging and what to expect and what they will expect to see from you as well. This will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. You have to submit all your work so that the judges can, kind of go through, review it, talk about it, and giving it your wow factor and impressing them. It's going to be very important. So these will be your 7 judges for tomorrow. And so we also want to thank our judges for their time and effort that they'll be putting into this. Our first speaker is Mr. Hardik Modi, as I mentioned, and he's on the line with us. Mr. Modi is an area vice president here at NetScout in the threat and mitigation products division. In his role, Mr. Modi oversees the teams responsible for mitigation products, as well as the creation of security content for NetScout's products, enabling best-in-class protection for users, as well as continuous delivery and publication of impactful research across the DDoS and intrusion landscape. Prior to joining NetScout, Mr. Modi was vice president threat research at a network security vendor. Mr. Modi has nearly 20 years of experience in networks, product design, and security research, and is a frequent author of blogs and speaker at several security events. And some of you guys may have read his blogs, and so you'll know a lot about him. Mr. Modi holds a Bachelor of Engineering degree from Gujarat University in India. And today he will speak to us about why cybersecurity isn't going away. So I'd like you to please help us in welcoming Mr. Modi to the Cyberathon and listening to him give us a very uplifting speech. Thanks, Mr. Modi. I'll hand off to you.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne, and hi, everyone. Yvonne, before I get started, if you could help me just confirm that my slides are showing up okay. Just 1 second, please.
Sure.
And I'm going to go to presenter mode, and every time it will show you guys the wrong screen. So I want to. Okay. I just want to confirm.
Oh, we know how that goes. You're in it's a speaker mode now, so you're in the wrong screen.
Yes, I figured.
Yeah.
And now, how about now?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Okay. Like I said, every time. So hi everyone, and thank you, Lata and Yvonne, for inviting me here, allowing me to participate. I've been familiar with the work of Shooting Stars Foundation for some years now, and I've wanted to contribute in some form. And this is my debut, so let's hope it goes well. Just really quick, this conversation is going to be about a little bit about our research, what we are seeing. And then I want to transition into okay, what this really can mean for you, people like yourselves who are at this stage of your career, and I'm sure considering many choices, one of which is cybersecurity. And I just want to show you why cybersecurity is incredibly relevant, can be very, very fulfilling. Certainly has been for my career. So I'm going to touch on that just a little bit. And just for society at large is going to be very, very important in the years and decades to come. And that is not going to change. That is a little bit of what my thesis is, in this conversation. I hope to go through my content in maybe about 20 minutes and then take questions at the end. So, if along the way you have something comes to mind, I think there's a Q&A, sort of window somewhere. please plug them in there, and then at the very end, we'll pick out a few to for me to answer. Personally, like I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but I'm there. At Hardik Modi. I'm certainly on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. If there's ever something specific that I can do, then please reach out to me with, hey, I was there Shooting Star Foundation, and here's maybe something you can help me with. Happy to kind of interact like that. So just Yvonne kind of shared a little bit about it, but yeah, I'm AVP Engineering. The teams that I run at NetScout do two things closely related, but still they're separate teams. One is that we build products that sit on large service provider networks, so the kinds of networks you heard about just a few minutes ago, as well as large enterprises. So think of people like banks, think people like just industrial kind of companies. Think of people like pharmaceutical manufacturers. Any kind of e-commerce type site on the internet. Many of them are protected by products that essentially my engineering team produces. Alongside that, I run a threat research organization. So now it's about 20 people whose job is to monitor the threat landscape, try to understand what's happening out there. What is, I like to say that, there are other companies like us. Those are our competitors. But then there are people who are trying to impact our customers, and the people that we're trying to impact, those are our adversaries. And so while at our company, we might have sales and marketing and all these functions who kind of are a little bit focused on, hey, they might be looking at what the competition is doing. The competition, as far as I'm concerned, is on our side, is the adversary. Those are the people on the other side, who are essentially attacking our customers and networks and societies at large. Those are the people that I run a research team that focuses on them, try to understand what they do. And from there come a lot of certainly protection for our customers, but then education for people at large. So we speak at industry forums and in conferences, with government, and this worldwide, because it is a worldwide phenomenon. And so what I'm going to start with today is just a little bit of background. And this is mainly to illustrate that the threat landscape is active. It is alive. There's a lot going on everywhere in the world. And then I should just sort of emphasize that a lot of the work that we do, we specialize in just this one sphere of cybersecurity called DDoS. And so mainly our focus is making sure that the services that people are trying to deliver on the internet, their availability stays up. So if you think about the triad of cybersecurity, there's going to be confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And a lot of people kind of think a lot about confidentiality. This is when the classic, there's an intrusion into a network, somebody finds critical information and either takes it out or encrypts it and right in place. And so all of that is kind of in this confidentiality space. Where we tend to spend a lot of time is on, you have a service where you're trying to deliver something across the internet, and through various means, people are either trying to degrade or deny the availability of your service. So by launching DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, on very key points across the internet, they're trying to make sure that you cannot deliver the service that you're trying to. This plays out all day long, all across the world. And I run a research team that focuses on this specifically and tries to understand what's going on. One of the things that we do is publish a threat report twice a year. So very recently we published, we think it was issue number 8. So we do this twice a year. And the last 4 years we've been publishing threat intelligence reports. It's available for free. There's a little sign up. I'm going to put the link at the end, but basically it's a NetScout threat intelligence report. And so from there, what you can get is a perspective of just DDoS, the trends, what's happening across the world, the campaigns that are run. So there's a lot of scattered activity, but then there's also a lot of focused kind of campaigns that run pretty much all the time against, and often involving extortion of various kinds. So, hey, I'm gonna do a little DDoS attack, take down your service for a little while, write you an extortion note, demand some money, and then if you don't pay that up, then I'm threatening to launch a larger attack. maybe something more sustained. So these kinds of campaigns have been running for a good long time now. And part of what we do is go, hey, this is what we have seen across the world. We like to say that we have visibility into about a third of the internet. And so, we are protecting large parts of the internet. A lot of activity that happens across the internet is transiting through equipment that we have provided to, whether they're enterprises or service providers. Some of these guys participate in a sharing, kind of anonymized sharing program with us, and that then gives us a kind of a global view. And so this allows us to provide really comprehensive, really comprehensive information about what's been happening. And I'm just trying to advance the slide. And so really quick, at a glance, we recorded 9.7 million attacks in the past year. Just to note that, yeah, it's a bit of a decline from the year before, which was really peak pandemic. Remember that time when everybody was home and a lot of businesses, a lot of educational institutions in particular had shut. I don't know what the experience was for all you guys, but I can tell you that anytime a large number of highly skilled, maybe not very motivated people end up in their homes with nothing to do, bad things happen across the internet. And certainly 2020 was a good long sustained period of that. We saw a lot of activity that we recognized as connected to the pandemic. But certainly on the year-on-year trends, maybe 2020 was a little bit anomaly, but then just generally there's a growth trend that's going fairly consistently. These can, even as much as these, if any of you are gamers, you probably recognize the threat of DDoS. There's a lot of gamer on gamer activity, in which DDoS is utilized. But the reality is also goes up against big business. And so just in one instance, we are aware of a provider, voice over IP solutions, who recorded, they reported a loss of $9 to $12 million simply because of a sustained DDoS event. I think they had a series of attacks over maybe a week, maybe a little bit longer. That really caused significant financial damage to them. And so this is like one company that happened to report it in their SEC filings here in the United States, their financial filings. And so, which is why we have this kind of awareness. But this is playing out, even against businesses and governments worldwide. And then part of what's going on is that there's no barrier to entry. There's a lot of services on the internet. You can launch small attacks for not that much money, and then you can really scale up, in terms of, DDoS in particular has been democratized to the point that you don't need, a lot of people who do launch DDoS attacks are simply using other services, and really don't have any technical skills themselves. And so this really, the barrier there is non-existent. And then of course, for people who are willing to invest time, money, effort into launching more complicated attacks, there's obviously a lot of damage that they can inflict. And so just once again, attack frequency between the first half and the second half, we kind of recognize this as, again, pandemic, economy is kind of reviving, people getting back to the business of life. And as a result, there's a little less, kind of in the top line numbers. But as far as the complexity of the attacks, that hasn't changed very much. So one of the things that we record is just how many different vectors. So what we think of is think of different types, of attacks, classifications of attacks. How many different vectors we record in a single attack? And just looking back to the beginning of 2017 to all the way to really the last half of last year, 2021, you can just see just how many, if you think about the attack, which had the most number of vectors in every region of the world, that there has been growth. And so this is now, and so really from a defender standpoint, in particular with DDoS, what happens is you're not just going, hey, okay, there's this one class of attack, here's my one defense for that. It's really as the attack rolls in, it's a lot of different kinds of traffic coming at you simultaneously. And then for you to kind of maintain your service, you're having to defend against all of them. This and I'm going to touch on this in a little bit, but think of it like the need for automation in a scenario like that, because you cannot do manual responses to every kind of attack, especially when they're happening at those kind of frequencies. So this was a really, really quick overview of like, the research that we do. If you want to learn more, this is where you can find them. I can get these links out to Lata and Yvonne to share out, maybe in your Discord channel or in some other communication to you guys. But just search for NetScout threat report. You'll find what I'm talking about. Also, we run something called Cyber Threat Horizon, which is essentially our view of what's happening across the world in DDoS, like in real time. So that's a live site that you can go to anytime to see the latest. Okay, but okay. So then, when it comes to what you guys are doing today and how you're thinking about your careers, one question you're going to have is like, wait a minute, like, if it's such a big problem, like, surely, there's a solution. There's one thing that we can do, or a few things we could do that would make it go away. And my contention is that across cybersecurity, the whole realm of cybersecurity, there's no such thing. What we can do is get better. We can get better at everything that we do, about how we deploy what we, the services that we want to, how we think about them, how users are allowed access, the kind of inputs that we take, right, from those users. But realistically, the problem, even for the years that I have been in the industry, even for those years that I've been doing research, all I've seen is that the problem has morphed and shifted. And part of it is, at least in my thinking, the way I look at the world, there's a lot of human design, prone to error. It's not that it's not that, like, hey, you did this thing and it's not a million years or a billion years of evolution going into these things. It's things that we crafted 10 years ago that suddenly got big, and now the whole world runs on a protocol, a service. Everybody uses their Nest doorbells and thermostats, and all of these things happen very quickly with strong kind of commercial imperatives behind them. And so as something new gets developed, it's out there, like, in a jiffy. There's not that much thought that goes into how we will securely deploy these devices. Architectures change in such a big way. And so 10 years ago, I would talk to customers who were like, yeah, we're trying to do a little bit of something with Amazon, maybe do some storage in S3. To the point, it wasn't that long before startups were running their entire business in Amazon, Web Services, AWS, and to today, where at least most of the customers that I speak to have some part of what they are using, some of their IT infrastructure spread across all of the major cloud providers. And so now they're all trying to think about, like, oh, wait a minute, like, how am I going to secure this thing in Azure versus AWS? Maybe with a little bit of stuff in Rackspace. And then I have a business unit that decided that Alibaba was the right solution for them to use. And so all of this is like, it's very heterogeneous, even when you're just like one, like a little company that's trying to operate. And all of these lead to changing surfaces. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, the single biggest driver for everything that happens in my view in cybersecurity, is that there's an intelligent adversary. There's somebody else who is watching that which you are doing and is responding accordingly. And I think over time we can change the incentives. We can make it less profitable for them to do the damage that they do. We can harden our infrastructure so that when there's a war that breaks out, like, is cybersecurity isn't necessarily the first thing that militaries turn to. That would be a good thing. But if you kind of tell me that, why can't cybersecurity be solved? I'm just going to say, why can't crime be solved? Right? There's it's in that space of something that, as we as a society grow and we grow dependent on technology, and right, that's not shrinking, anytime soon. As we get dependent on technology, we are going to be confronted with people who will use that technology against us, and they will constantly try to do this. And it's for us to try and make sure that the incentives for them stay, in this space where we can manage, and that, like, and at time it'll go out of whack, and then we'll have to control it. And this is going to be an endless cycle, again, think of it like crime in practically every part of the world today. So, so then, okay, what does this mean for you guys? And here I'm just going to point out that I don't have the best sense of what's going to happen in the rest of the day, but even from picking up what I heard this morning, I suspect that there's going to be software that is written, which is a great thing. I'm really glad about that. I come from a software background. The point I wanted to make to you is that, as you think about the kinds of people that will be in cybersecurity, it won't just be people who write software. Like, I just have listed a bunch of, so essentially job titles, like, things that people have to do in the industry. But I'm here in Washington, D.C., and in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of people who are thinking about policy in cybersecurity. And so people like them often have, maybe a liberal arts background. There's somebody who studied history, somebody who studied economics, lots of people who've studied law. So as you look around in your colleges and you go like, hey, there's people in the, computer science department or other, sort of hard sciences departments in which people are doing computers, and you think, those are the people that I'm going to see in cybersecurity in the years to come. I don't think that's true. I think you're going to see a huge, for us to succeed, for our societies to grow and are using technology, we're going to have people come in from all walks of life to contribute in cybersecurity. So that's something that I want you to really bear in mind, even as it could be that there are certain roles that come naturally to people with a software background. And yeah, there's definitely a migration path, a path for somebody to build code, to write code, to eventually get to the point that you're kind of defending against threats. But there's a lot of other paths that will lead to careers in cybersecurity. That's at least one of the things I wanted to emphasize. And so, what kind of people do we need? I'd say all kinds. It really will be all kinds. And now I don't know that we'll be when we try to build something like this, like a hackathon, a cyberathon, or something like that. Will we be able to build out, I think, a policy-oriented or a law-oriented, cyberathon? I hope that day comes. Sometime in the, not that far in the future, but, even as you guys embark on what you're going to do, what you have been doing, as you think of your careers, just remember that there's that person that you thought, is right now is studying English. That person could be the CISO at the organization that you work in, in the future. And there are lots of people who've come into those kinds of roles with backgrounds that are different. Just to close out, like my path has been, I started as a developer. I think you guys heard Gujarat University, that's in India. I recognize that, some number of you would probably know where that is, in Gujarat and the university there. But just so you know, it's a mid-level university in India. I was there maybe 25 years ago. That's where I did electrical engineering. Somehow that got me into being a developer. And from there, I just sort of I would look for things that seemed interesting to me, that I thought would be fulfilling. And along the way, I have had the opportunity to be both an individual contributor, in which I'm doing something by myself and kind of delivering value to my company. And over time, I've also really enjoyed working with others and helping to build and run teams of people kind of focused on a mission. And so at various points, I've been manager, of groups of people. Somewhere along the way, even as I was kind of, working on cybersecurity products, both from really from a product space, I got interested in really research and just, I definitely have no qualifications to be a researcher myself, but I have a strong interest in it, in what is possible. And eventually I got into this position of kind of running cybersecurity teams, talking about the discoveries that we were making, kind of directing some aspect of the work that we were doing. And at this point, it's all this kind of convergence of engineering and people management and cybersecurity research. That's where kind of I have maybe about 70 people that work with me, and we're having a lot of fun across all of these spaces, and hopefully making a difference along the way. So just, that's what I wanted to leave you guys with. There's a lot that is happening in this space. It will require society at large to respond, as a society. And it's not just going to be the programmers, and it's not just going to be the security researchers, or people in these little groups that eventually are responsible for our response and building kind of more secure environments and operating with greater security. But I think it's going to take everyone. And as you guys develop in your careers, I want you to keep that in mind. So with that, the last thing is you guys have to think about your path. And I hope your path takes you into cybersecurity. It has been certainly very fulfilling and inspiring for myself. And I really think that there's a lot of room for growth and a lot of room to make a difference. And I wish you guys all the best. With that, I'm going to pause. And Yvonne, maybe if there have been questions that came through. I know we just hit 11 the time, but
right.
If you think we have time, then maybe we could take one or two.
Okay, so we're guys, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat window. Let us know. And while you do that, I'd like to thank Mr. Modi for providing us the insights on the research into the different threats across the world, right? And the continuing and escalating need for the varied creative skills that I know you all possess, that we need to combat cybersecurity issues in our very connected world today. And as he said, as you do your projects, even though it's around the software and the hackathon, think about the governance, right? It's making what rules and regulations and other things that we will need in the future. And even within your projects, you can outline some of those. And I think that would be very helpful for your judges as well, to know that you're thinking forward. So
I have a question before you take the other question, Mr.
Sure.
Modi, is in your experience, what was one of the, exciting or innovative or scary cyber threat experience you went through in your career? And did you solve it, or did your team solve it? Just a quick.
I'm trying to think about which of the scariest ones I can tell you about. I'm allowed to speak about.
You don't have to reveal the names of the companies or whatever, just the incident.
Yeah. No. I mean, just realistically, we had this was in 2017. I mean, it's all of this is public information, so I'm not sharing any secrets, but definitely on the inside, it was a very, very kind of hairy time. But yeah, no, we had recognized that some set of think tanks in Washington, D.C. had been compromised and were serving up some malware that we knew was associated with Chinese government associated kind of groups, right? And we were like, okay, this happens all the time. I wonder, what's so special about this? And then we recognized that this was basically a trade policy oriented think tank. And the members of the think tank were basically the largest corporations in the United States. And so if you were working at one of those corporations, you're probably in their trade policy group. And you'd be logging into this site for this think tank, which would be basically serving up malware to you, a specific kind of malware that then would essentially allow for this particular group to have access to your system. Part of it, we were looking at it, it was getting more and more interesting. And then we realized that this was fairly early in the Trump administration. And there was about, the president of China, Xi Jinping, was about to pay a visit to the United States. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but he went to Florida, Mar-a-Lago, and this was all about trade policy. And so, in our heads, suddenly we connected all these dots and recognized what was going on. And, at least, theorized what was going on. And then from there was a, serious sort of escalation within important circles in the United States. And eventually my team published our report, our findings on this, pretty much as President Xi Jinping's plane was landing in Florida. So we got that out there like essentially just in time. Now, I'm not saying that we prevented, there's all of these things, like you only get to see a little bit of what happened, and then you hypothesize like the rest of what happened after that. So I don't want to get, sort of make it seem like, we saved the day or something. And eventually you realize that there is no such thing in cybersecurity. But yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of what you end up doing, cybersecurity ends up being national security. And so, like just a few months ago, as Russia invades Ukraine, but it's definitely on the DDoS side that we started to see the activity really pick up. And this is in the days prior to the invasion. So even as the rest of the world was kind of like, hey, this is probably about to happen. That's where we'd already seen it. We knew it was happening. We knew it was underway. And so, yeah, so just that you end up in this space of, there's a lot of very impactful stuff, like hospitals shut down because a ransomware group has taken them over. You have lots of other kind of like this kind of national cybersecurity type events happen, and this is across every country in the world. So again, I don't want to overplay it and go like, suddenly we're not. I try not to think of ourselves as kind of heroes, kind of jumping into these battles, but definitely we have a role to play in this, and it takes you into pretty exciting kind of territory.
Yeah, because if we can't detect it, right, we can't do anything about it. So it's an important role. So we do have one question, and then we can move on to our next speaker. The question is, how did you know that this was the path that was meant for you?
I mean, look, I'm sure there are some people in this world who are completely intentional about their career paths and what they're going to do over the course of decades. I'm not one of them. It was a step at a time where, I'm recognizing, I'm looking for the opportunities that are around me. I'm recognizing like what is possible for me, and trying to understand what will be interesting for me. And then it's been like just one step at a time. On topic though, like, I say this when I mentor like people and in my organization and outside, for in this world, like there are some skills, certain roles in which you need to have very hard technical skills, and long experience to take them on, right? So I'm not about to say I want to be a heart surgeon, like please just let me do that, tomorrow. Certainly you can't do that, but the modern world has created so many roles that do not have a clear sort of like, here's career path, here's professional trajectory to get you there. That ultimately you have to be looking for them, and the one requirement that I say that you need to have, or the one thing that you have to do in order to get the role. I mean, there are lots of things you have to do, but at a minimum, the one thing you have to do is ask for it. So if you're secure in the work that you're doing, and you're doing something well, if you see, let's say you join a company, and I want you to remember this for a good long time, that ultimately, if there's that other thing that you want to do, with your managers, with people elsewhere in the organization, and without being confrontational or kind of coming across as as like malign in some way, like in the most graceful way possible, you have to ask for that which you want. And okay. and that's just like, just keep that with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Modi. Thanks. And we'll move on to our next speaker. And again, all the insights shared today, guys, I know this will be helping you as you go through today, tomorrow, and your career. So again, thanks so much. We'll move on to our next speaker, Mr. Neil Daswani.